Hi, welcome back to another one of our lookbook videos. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of a mini tutorial plus an explanation on how to do Dutch braids versus French braids. What are the differences and what are the similarities? Of course, these names can be switched around, but for our purposes, I'm going to be explaining to you what my version of a French braid is and what my version of a Dutch braid is, but you know, it's the most common one you'll find on YouTube if you want to look for any other tutorials. So first we're going to be starting off with French braids. Now, both of these hairstyles are relatively around the same difficulty, so you don't need to worry about that. It's just the look that's different. So French braids, to begin, you'll start off, since we're going to be doing pigtails, we'll start off by grabbing a small chunk of hair in the start and dividing it into 3 sections. Now that you've had these 3 sections, as you can see, I'm holding them with 3 different fingers and separating them like so. You can figure out the different ways on how you want to hold the hair, but this is how I prefer it. I like to put each of the 3 pieces in between my knuckles so that I can hold it the best. Now, for French braids, the way you do it is you take the piece closest to the face, so not closest to the hair parting. So for this side, it'll be the one on the left side and not the one on the right side. So what you do is you take that piece, the one closest to the face, and you cross it over the middle piece. This will be important once we do the Dutch braids, and you'll understand why I'm emphasizing over so much. So then you'll take this piece, the one closest to the middle part of the hair, and you will cross it then over what is now your new middle part. So now you have 2 crosses. Then you will take this piece, the one that's on the leftmost side, since I'm doing her left side, you will take the one that is on the leftmost side and cross it over so it is now in the middle. But that's not the only thing you're going to do. You will take a small piece of hair from that same general area that you got it from, so that was the left side, and you will cross it over and hold it with your finger. Now, you might have noticed that I have let go of this piece, but as long as you keep track of where it is in a general area, you'll be okay. Now, I take this piece from the right side and I cross it over. Then I'm going to take a piece from closer to her parting area. So on the right side, I split it and I cross it over. So now it joins with that piece that I braided. I'm going to take this next section. Make sure you're keeping a tight grip, otherwise you will lose track of what you're doing. Cross it over and hold it with my finger. Then take this section, and you will notice that the sections are getting increasingly larger as you're doing this. So then I'm going to take a piece. You don't want to get too big, but try to make it around the same size of where you're at in the braid. So as you get lower and lower, take from around that general area. Then I will take this piece. And when you're starting, go super slow because it can really help you keep track of your hair, what's happening. And then you cross over, and you're just gonna keep repeating that process. So there are 3 main steps to this process. So there is the cross, the grab from one of the addition, and the equal, or like kind of think of it kind of like a math problem. So you have the original number, you're adding a new amount of hair, so this amount, and you are getting the total, which is when you add the hair to the other section. So then I continue, and as you can see, the best way to describe this is it looks like the hair is going, is like being braided within the hair. It doesn't look like it's poking out. It looks like almost very subtly. It's very, very subtle. So then I continue, grab, and it's recommended to do this before you make sure you've brushed your hair before doing this, because it's going to be a lot of work trying to like run your fingers through your hair while you're trying to braid. I've done it before. It's not fun. It's very difficult. And then you continue. And now, as you can see, the pieces are getting even bigger. And then we're continuing to grab and go. Okay, so now that I've reached the end of her hair, I've just been following the same pattern of just until I've completed her hair. And now I have all this hair. Now all I'm going to do is just cross over like so, just as I would do a regular 3-strand braid. So I go from the leftmost side, cross over the middle, but not the rightmost side. The rightmost side, cross over the middle, but not the leftmost side. Left, middle, right, middle, left, middle, right, middle.
And then you just continue it all the way down.
Yeah, you just keep going until we reach the end. And then I will showcase the final French braid look before we move on to Dutch, and then you can see the difference between the two. So you don't want to go all the way to the end until you have absolutely no more hair to tie. So once you've reached a good point and you're happy with how much hair is left, you're just gonna tie it off. We recommend smaller hair ties because you don't want it to look super bulky at the bottom of your hair, at the bottom of your ponytail. So you just tie it up, tighten it a little. And if you would like, a fun little tip to make it look like it has added volume is you can just pull it out the strands of the ponytail and make it more added volume. So it looks like you have, your hair is thicker than it actually is. Of course, or if those of you who are blessed with very thick hair, then you don't have to do this. But if you would like more volume in your hair, then you can do this. So this is the completed French braid side, and now we're going to move on to the Dutch braid side on the other side. Now, for Dutch braid, we're going to start off exactly the same way we did for the French braids. I'm going to take a small section of hair, around this much. You can use a parting brush if you would prefer it to be super neat. Or perfect. I'm just using my fingers for this. And I have 3 sections. Now, instead of crossing in front or over the middle strand of hair, I'm going to take the strand to the right, because I'm doing the right side of her hair, the one that's the closest to her face. I'm going to put that underneath,
not over,
because this will create almost like I like to call it pop out, like a pop out effect. Then I'm going to take the left side, the one that's closest to the middle of her hair or the part of her hair,
and again put it
under the hair. So I'm putting it underneath the middle strand.
If you put it over top, it'll
look exactly like the French one. So then I'm going to take this rightmost hair strand and tuck it under. But since I already did my 2, remember, I need to grab. Now, you're not going to do anything different like you did in the French braid side. You're going to grab a small section of hair and just add it to that section. You don't need to do anything special. The only thing you're going to be changing is that you've put it underneath the middle strand, not on top. So you want to keep it tight, otherwise the top is not going to be clear as to like what you can see of the braid. And then, so now I'm adding the left side, cross it under the middle piece, and I'm going to grab and under and grab underneath. You can continue to tighten it, so while you're grabbing new pieces of hair, it might not be perfectly tight, so you can just continue to tighten it as you move on. And now I've grabbed the left side, and now I'm going to grab the right side. And remember, always going under. Now, I have met people, I learned how to braid by going over, so doing French braids was much more natural for me. But some people did, I've met people who have learned how to do it by doing under, by doing a Dutch type style. So it just depends on how you learned your original 3-strand braid, and that might make that type of French or Dutch easier for you. And they can
I think the most popular that I've found is French.
And then you can grab this next section and once again, add it under, not over. So I've grabbed this section, I put it under first, just so you can keep track of your hair. That's why I like to not do it at the same time. I have seen tutorials where you grab it at the same time, but I like to do it in 2 separate steps, as long as you're keeping track of what hair you've got. And then I take it and braid it under. And then I'm going to take this piece, put it under, and I'm just gonna turn Karina so you can see. And as you can see, a braid is forming, but you might notice that it looks a little bit different from the French side, because instead of going, looks like it's being braided throughout the hair, this one looks like it's being braided on top of the hair. That's like my best description I could give. And then I go underneath, grab. You don't need to grab super large sections, but just try to keep up with where you're at in the braid. So you don't need to grab like super tiny to the point where you're grabbing hair from like where you started, but you're like halfway through your head. So you want to grab appropriate sections for where you are in the braid. So as you can see, I'm grabbing from around the place where I've stopped in the braid. Okay, so now I'm going to continue to grab, and as you can see, I'm grabbing roughly in like an appropriate amount for where I am in the braid. So as you get farther down the hair, you want to grab more, just so you can keep up with your braid. And then you want to continue all the way down, cross, and you want to repeat this pattern. Like the more you practice, it's all about practice. So the more you practice, the better you'll get. You grab from there, here, and keep tightening it. Cross and under, always going under, because if you don't go under, then it's just gonna look exactly the same like how you did the French side. And then I grab, and then once you reach here, you can start grabbing from like the excess hair that's a little bit underneath the parts that you've braided. So you want to just make sure by the end you have all of the hair that you've been working with. And then you want to grab underneath, tighten, and continue. So we're reaching the end, and then I'm going to show you, very similar to the French side, what to do. Now, we've gone here, underneath, keep tightening, grab, only a few parts left, and then I go underneath, and then I want to grab from the neck, make sure there's no hair underneath the neck.
It actually feels so nice when you're getting your hair braided, and then there's like hair here, and then it just gets lifted off your neck.
So then, now that I've reached the bottom, what you do is now I have my right side free, because as you can see, my left side has just been braided. So I have my right side free, and I'm going to place it underneath the middle. So you're going to continue with that under pattern. You're not going to switch what you were doing. Then you're going to go left, under, right, under, left, under, right, under. And just like the French, all you're doing is you're just changing the direction in which you braid. So the arrows are gonna look like they're pointing upwards instead of pointing downwards like they were with the French braid. So if you look at it as arrows, the arrows with this, see how they look like they're going upwards? That's how I like to look at it. And with this one, they look like they're pointing downwards. So if you want to remember that, you can think of Dutch as going up and French as going down.
Yes.
And then, or French going like within the hair, and Dutch popping out of the hair. So there you go, keep going, and as you can see, I'm getting faster because I've had a lot of practice doing this. But of course, if you're a beginner and you're just learning, no worries, you do not need to be fast. Take your time, it'll honestly make the result look so much better. So now that I've reached the end, as you can see, I have tiny little pieces, so I'm like, okay, I know it's time to stop. I hold onto the hair as I tie it. I like to leave like as minimal amount of hair out of the braid as possible, but different people have different preferences. Yes. So if you want a little bit more hair, you know, stop it earlier. And there you go. There is the Dutch side. I've never done this before with two separate styles, but here are the final. I don't know. Here are the final two. Here are the final two styles. So we have Dutch on this side. As you can see, it looks like it's popping out of the hair, just like so.
I personally prefer Dutch,
but different people have different preferences. And over here is French. As you can see, it looks like it's being braided into the hair. So let's do one final spin around. And there you have it. That was a mini tutorial on how to do the two separate types of braids, French and Dutch. If you like this video, make sure to leave a like and comment which one was your favorite. Did you prefer the Dutch side or did you prefer the French side? Let us know. And we'll see you on the next one. Bye!